Another day of germ warfare and still no sign. The worst case of bioterrorism in this country is close to being solved.
A complete sweep for traces
Day
of
6
anthrax.
of the smallpox epidemic.
We have this anthrax. You die now. Are you afraid? Death to America, death to Israel. Allah is great.
A dark winter.
I don't have anthrax.
Good morning. President Bush tries reassuring the nation after anthrax is found at a facility that handles mail going to the White House.
This was based on a bacteria called Bacillus anthracis, and it happened in September 2001, and it came out in October 2001 with a bio attack with post letters.
Yes.
Sent it to high-level journalists and high-level parliamentarians, and the first letter was given to a media outlet called Amy in Florida, and this was around September 11, interestingly. But this mass panic, what was created then by the governments and by the media, was anthrax, 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 like now corona, corona, corona. And, well, they created a law in December 2001, and this is nearly exactly the law that happened now in Germany on the 18th of November 2020. So, and this was a Model State Emergency Powers Act with the draft of December 21, 2001. So it looks like that the anthrax event in 2001 is like a blueprint of this coronavirus in 2020. And we have a lot of other similarities and code words. Interestingly, so we know from the anthrax, it was not a foreign attack, it was a domestic. And this is official, even the government of the United States. They say, okay, this anthrax attack was not a foreign attack, it was a domestic attack. Because in December 2001, there was a scientific investigation, and it came out that the anthrax came out of the US Army lab for 100%. And the government admitted this. So what happened? All the mass media panic was coming from 100% down to 0%. Most of the people didn't know and can't remember of the anthrax. Yes, there was something.
On day 6 of the smallpox epidemic, the White House confirmed that federal government officials and military personnel are being vaccinated. 300 people have died. At least 2,000 are infected with smallpox. Smallpox symptoms are being seen in 15 states, also in Canada, Mexico, and England. The U.S. smallpox vaccine supply continues to shrink as officials try to stretch limited stocks to cover the entire nation. Still, no group claims responsibility for unleashing the deadly smallpox virus. But NCN has learned that Iraq may have provided the technology behind the attack to terrorist groups based in Afghanistan.
There was some similarities because there was a simulation before, 3 months before the anthrax attacks, in June 2001, similar to the event 201 in summer 2019, so just 3 months before the corona outbreak. The planners were nearly the same. There was the CIA, so the Central Intelligence Agency, was sitting at the desk. They're doing it openly, that's the trick. In both simulations. 2001 and 2019,
the same people?
Plus the same people. So Johns Hopkins University,
were involved in both.
Yeah, so we're sitting at the desk, and it was the same man, Thomas Ingleby.
Yes.
Was sitting at Dark Winter simulation.
And what was the Dark Winter?
Well, Dark Winter was the name of the simulation in 2001, before this biothreat happened in reality.
Yes.
And very interestingly, there is a man from Dark Winter, one of the planners, who had the connection to the Great Reset of today. We know what's going on now, the financial Great Reset of Klaus Schwab.
Yes.
The COVID-19 crisis has shown us that our old systems
are not fit anymore for the 21st century. Now is the historical moment, the time, not only to fight severe virus, but to shape the system. We can build a new social contract. In short, we need a great reset. We have to mobilize all constituents of our global society to work together. We must not miss this unique window of opportunity.
And is there a direct connection between Dark Winter and Klaus Schwab? Yes. And his name is Mr. David Gergen. He was the planner of Dark Winter. He sat on the table with the Central Intelligence Agency, with the Johns Hopkins University, and now he's sitting at the board of the Klaus Schwab Foundation.
And the Klaus Schwab Foundation, of course, is behind or has a connection to this so-called Great Reset.
Yes, exactly. So Klaus Schwab wrote a book. The trick is to do it publicly. Wrote a book in English called COVID-19, The Great Reset. It's translated to German. Corona, der große Umbruch. It's really the book to read, like in the 1920s and 1930s. There is a book out, and nobody should say that he didn't know about the book, and it's Klaus Schwab.
And so here's this organization that has grown to this mammoth force and has enormous influence, dedicated to improving the state of the world. What is the state of the world today, as you see?
We are much too much backwards oriented or crisis management oriented and do not have a time left really to shape our future. That's maybe where the forum is coming in.
As we've seen various flu scares come along, we haven't had a super good response. So the paradigmatic examples are smallpox for an intentionally caused thing, that there was a simulation called Dark Winter that didn't come out very well, i.e. smallpox scored 1 and humanity scored 0.
And the code word Dark Winter, what Joe Biden announced.
This is the same fellow who told you that, don't worry, we're going to end this by the summer. We're about to go into a dark winter, and he has no clear plan and there's no prospect.
I believe that President Donald Trump responded to that by using the same words.
Yeah, interestingly.
I don't think we're going to have a dark winter at all. We're opening up our country. We've learned and studied and understand the disease.
So speech writers, advise the candidates not to echo the words of their opponent. But Donald Trump did. So Joe Biden said in a lot of speeches, a very dark winter is coming.
We're still facing a very dark winter.
And Donald Trump was echoing this.
But we're not entering a dark winter.
I don't know if a dark winter is coming.
Interesting choice of words, just following what you've just described about Event 201 and Dark Winter in 2001.
Exactly, yeah. And I checked C-SPAN, this is a parliament television. If you type in Dark Winter, you will see, it's this term, Dark Winter, wasn't used much before. So it's really a code.
And the problem is we don't have enough vaccine to go around.
Meaning we don't have enough vaccine for the United States?
Well, I would like to think that, but we don't have sufficient stockpiles for the people in Oklahoma, Georgia, or Pennsylvania, much less for the entire United States population.
Well, that certainly doesn't sound encouraging. What do you mean exactly?
Angie, it means it could be a very dark winter for America.
Sobering. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Kavlik.
In this simulation, Dark Winter, it was all about a real deadly agent, like an anthrax. Yes. So COVID-19 is not a real deadly agent, but Dark Winter is. And Joe Biden announced Dark Winter is coming. So what does it mean for us?
What does it mean for just on that point, hypothetically speaking, could you imagine a situation where a real deadly virus were to be released, perhaps by a terrorist attack or whatever, but a real deadly virus were released? What would happen then?
Well, I think we all could imagine that perhaps then the mass media and the governments all around the world will put the finger on the demonstrators, and the people from the peace movement to say, oh yes, we told you all the months, don't spread out the virus because it's so deadly. Well, scientifically, there's no evidence for this. We would have seen this because it's
of course,
just
with the Black
1 or
Lives
2
Matters
weeks.
and with the freedom rallies in Berlin and Germany and across Europe, we would have seen it if the virus was actually as deadly as this.
Exactly. But guess the situation if this would happen. So a really deadly virus threat would come out, like a variant of SARS-CoV-2, deadly variant would come out, and then they would blame all the people. So this would be a situation like civil war, because a lot of people are, of course, afraid. Yeah. And they will blame the demonstrators or of spreading.
Of course. So it would polarize the population. It would set one half of the population against the other half of the population.
Exactly, yeah. And then they could point the finger and say, well, you seen, we told you all the time, yeah, wearing masks, social distancing, yeah, and it's you to blame for.
I see.
Well, this
the
is...
answer to that then? How could people counteract that? What?
Yes, and I want to close with this, how we can counteract. So we as a World Freedom Alliance, we are prepared to look into these things scientifically, evidence-based. Like in the year 2001, there was a good professor from Arizona, his name was Paul Keim, and he got out that this anthrax was coming from the US Army itself. And if there would be now a situation with a dark winter, deadly virus threat, if we would see very sick people or dead people, we need to investigate, is this agent really from where it comes from? Yes. So it is definitely not the SARS-CoV-2, what we have seen the last months. So we are prepared for this situation, for this announced dark winter.
Very good, Dr. Schöning. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
The idea of a bioterrorist attack is kind of the nightmare scenario because they're a pathogen with a high death rate would be picked. Now, the good news is most of the work we're going to do to be ready for pandemic 2, I call this pandemic 1, most of the work we'll do to be ready for that are also the things we need to do to minimize the threat of bioterrorism. So we'll have to prepare for the next one. That, I'd say is will get attention this time.